But what I've found is that the best way that people are going to jump in and learn this software and learn how this process goes is by shadowing you and understanding what your job is, and is by hands-on doing it. The only way you're going to learn how to solve a problem with no code technology and look at a specific instance that a client has a problem is by solving it for them.
Welcome to Systems with Laura, the podcast where we break down how modern businesses run behind the scenes. This episode of Systems with Laura is brought to you by Proprium, business workflow and automation agency. If you're building a service-based business and you're overwhelmed by operations, automations, or choosing the right tools, this is exactly what Proprium helps with. Proprium builds systems that help you save time, reduce repetitive work, and scale without chaos. Learn more at proprium.agency. I'm your host, Laura, and today I'm joined by someone whose work I've been watching and admiring for quite some time. We are both in the world of no-code implementation, system design, and business process optimization, but with unique journeys, themes, and approaches. My guest today is Shannon Vincent, founder of SMV Virtual Consulting, a company that has delivered over 150 successful projects across industries, built a high-performing global team, and earned a top 3% ranking on Upwork. Shannon has transformed her background in corporate administration into a thriving consultancy focused on tools like ClickUp, SmartSuite, Airtable, and more. This episode is a little different because Shannon and I technically do similar work, but instead of competing, we collaborate and are colleagues. And I wanted us to have an open and real conversation about what it actually takes to build scalable systems, grow a team, manage client expectations, and stay relevant in the fast evolving world of automation and no code. So let's dive in. Thank you for joining me today, Shannon.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm really excited about our conversation because I get to geek out with somebody who understands me fully.
Exactly.
So this is going to be very interesting. But before we dive into all the details related to software and all of that, I wanted to ask you, with your origin story, basically what made you switch to entrepreneurship? Why did you decide that you wanted to move from corporate life into building your own consultancy? And do you like it? What's different?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I started about 7 years ago. I was working as a recruitment manager for a CPA firm. I had been there for about 6.5 years. And they brought in a manager that I didn't really get along with or kind of align on like goals with. And so I brought this up to our HR team and I was let go a few days later. And after that experience, I realized that I kind of just wanted to take control of my destiny with my career. So I looked online and I thought of what could I do to work for myself. And I'd already kind of gone to school for computer science. I had worked in administrative jobs and I saw that virtual assistants was kind of a trendy thing. So I learned more about being a virtual assistant. I learned about Upwork and saw that, it was a platform that people were doing freelance work on. And so I kind of just dove right in and I started applying for jobs on Upwork. I learned how to build my own website and I got a few clients. And from there, I realized that typically my clients were facing challenges with systems. And so I kind of learned some of these project management tools and implemented them for my virtual assistant clients. And once I started implementing those tools, I realized that this was something I was really passionate about, was like optimizing systems. And I would train myself on YouTube videos for hours at a time and kind of learn the ins and outs of the systems. And over time, it evolved into doing no code system implementations and primarily focusing on those these days.
So basically, when you didn't agree with that person, I think that that was the step that you didn't even know maybe at that time, but that's where when a real consultant character kind of showed up and you were trying to basically help, but they didn't hear it.
Yeah, they basically had their own vision and I just didn't align. That manager didn't last long there, and so I just think that it was destiny. It was a path that I was meant to take, and even though it was a horrible experience, it led me to something I'm really passionate about.
I definitely agree. And I think that sometimes we, kind of circumstances push us in those directions. I also stumbled upon also by accident to this line of work. I would never have imagined in my life that I would do anything with software, honestly. I didn't think of myself in that way. But I do feel that when you are able to kind of see the patterns and understand businesses, then this is the perfect career path for somebody who is able to do that. And you went from VA services to high level systems consulting. So, how did the pattern recognition in business help you move towards that?
Yeah, I was just seeing that when people were bringing me in as a virtual assistant, they weren't even set up to have a virtual assistant. They didn't have systems in place. They weren't easy. It wasn't easy for them to delegate work. It was a kind of all over the place. And a lot of times information was in the business owners' heads. And I was trying to get that information so I could be of value. And so I found that by first helping them get a system where they could at least delegate work to me was the first like step that I took. And then, moving into automating things. So then I realized there was places where I could automate. And a lot of my initial clients were with me for a very long time. And so they were very open to me recommending systems and automations and things like that. And that's how I got my footing is I would go and check out these systems, look into ClickUp, look into Airtable, and try to find which tool is going to be right for them, and then present it to them, show them samples, and just kind of iterate on it.
So when we both mention systems, I think we're both referring sometimes to the software itself and sometimes to the systems in business. Could you clarify to people who are just going to listen to us and who don't have the knowledge that we have related to this, what is the difference and what do you call systems and how do you set up systems in a way?
Yeah. And so I feel like the system is the actual process of doing a certain task or yeah, just doing a certain workflow that you may do. And the software is just a piece that's connecting to it to enable you to do that task or that project. Yeah.
I think that's a very simple and clear way to kind of like distinct those. Um, I have a feeling that usually people just hear about a piece of software and then they just find a person who has that on their website or on Upwork or on Fiverr as a keyword. Basically they reach out and then the conversation starts, and my kind of gut feeling is that the less you know about the complexity of business, the more you will offer a template or something much more minimal. But the more you understand the complexity and how this should be individually tailored to individual companies, that you then start with mapping the processes, you start with the preparation for it. So do you have that experience? Do people ask you for templates? How does that kind of work? How do you start the
Yeah.
conversation? Yeah.
I think that I have people ask me for templates, and I think templates are great. They're great to get ideas from. They're great to get inspiration from. But in most cases, I'm going to build custom to my specific client. Uh, Templates tend to be kind of inflated with a bunch of things that you're not going to need for your specific use case. And so I ask clients, if you've seen a template that we'd like to get inspiration from, we can use that as kind of a vision. It does help give clarity, but in most cases, what I like to do is start with like discovery and understanding the company and understanding what their workflows are and who's doing those workflows. And a lot of times it's through conversation with the businesses I work with. A lot of it's in their heads. They don't have documented SOPs. We're just kind of going off of what they've naturally done over time, analyzing that, and then approving upon that.
But why is that important? Why can't you just choose software and just start using it?
I mean, you can, but it would probably be a mess. In most cases, you're going to, I've worked with dozens of marketing agencies, and no agency does it the same way. There's not one right way to do it. And so I think you have to look at each specific use case and then kind of modify according to the way they do things, because we're talking about smaller teams or larger teams. We're talking about teams that may have automation and may be used to automation, and other teams who are manually doing things. And you have to kind of align to where they are in their business. And then, you can build on it and, get them out of sort of those manual tasks, but you do have to kind of meet them where they are right now.
I have a feeling that that's a little bit of a misconception when people first start thinking about services like this. So I do feel like it's a little bit of also a duty of everybody of us in the industry to kind of educate on that, to understand the dangers of just using a template that's not for inspiration, and then basically purchasing stuff that's plug and play, that you think is plug and play, and then you don't know how to use. So what are your thoughts on that? I know some people would say, well, Laura, that's a franchise. And yes, franchises have that. You can purchase the whole brand and all of that, but you still also have to distinguish that franchise that you're using from everything else around you. For example, if you have a McDonald's, it's gonna be fully done the way it should be done, but it's still a positioning place where you put the restaurant. There are so many local things that can also affect it, and I can be sure that even that franchise has internal processes different from local to local, basically. So,
Exactly.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think, again, you can take a template and you could get that inspiration, but it's not going to fit exactly how you want it to fit for most cases. If you go in and you install a template or you use kind of an out of the box solution, you're going to end up starting to use it, but find that it's missing elements that you may need. It's not custom to you. And that's the whole benefit of no code solutions, in my opinion, is it could be fully customized to what you need. And there's so many different options and how to go about that now, whether it's incorporating AI into it or using custom features within these softwares. They're ever evolving and improving just so you can make that custom to you. So in most cases, you could try to use a template. And I've had many people come to me that have started with the template, but they run into issues just because it's not intended for their specifics.
Makes full sense. And today on the market, there are so many options. So, every category of software that you go and you check out, you can have 50, 100 competitors of theirs in the same category. Now we also have AI builders, AI code builders. So there are so many things happening on the market. How do you choose software? Do you have a tech stack that you kind of, you know, you swear on, this is what I use, this is what I recommend, or do you go by case by case?
I have a tech stack that I kind of stick to. It's the software that we've been educating ourselves on over the years, and I feel that, to really be an expert in software, you kind of have to understand the ins and outs, and you don't really have time to learn every single software that's out there, and they're ever evolving. I have a long list of features that I'm catching up on weekly. So I kind of stick to the ones that I've tried out and I really love. I love their features. I look, I really care about customer support. I care about, where it's going, where this software is going, and on kind of the evolution of the software. And so then I've narrowed down to those softwares, and that's what we focus on. I specifically am an expert in certain softwares, and then I'll have a couple people on my team that are experts in other softwares. Me particularly, I focus on SmartSuite, ClickUp, and Airtable, or kind of along with like portals and extensions related to those. And then I have others on my team who are Asana, Monday, and things like that. So I've kind of divvied it up among the expertise among my team.
So when you look at those software, and most of them are in the similar category, project management, business management category, are there things that you prefer in one or the other? And it's okay if you can't name. We all have relationships with
Yeah,
different
exactly.
companies, so just tell me to skip question. But especially, I think both of us really recommend SmartSuite, and we really love to use SmartSuite and ClickUp. But we don't even have to name the name of the software. What I'm kind of going for is, did you ever use a platform for a while, then maybe get disappointed, switch? How often do you switch? I think it's my uh, personally, I like to kind of explore, and during the weekend, sometimes just check out the features just to see what's new, what's interesting. And sometimes I tend to decide we're going to switch our maybe email management system, or we're going to switch something else. And I think the more you know about them, you kind of tend to do it faster, but you also tend to kind of risk switches also.
Oh,
So are you are you much more calmer, and like, do you calculate your moves, or do you also test out and play with it like me?
I always have a running list. I have a bookmark tab of like tools to watch, and it's ever growing. And I love seeing the new tools that are coming out and evolving. I tend to be cautious when I'm switching my own software. I don't do that very often, but I do test out a lot of them. I think every software that I work with has its strengths. So I don't have one main software that's supreme over any other software. I think they all have really good strengths about them. And then the way they're evolving, I'm just excited to see the path that any one of these software companies takes over the next few years, because they're changing sometimes weekly. They're changing their features and adding to them. So yeah, I do have, I call it like shiny object syndrome, where I'm just like going for the next big thing, but I try to be very rational when I'm deciding to change my own software.
I love that I have my personal brand as a hobby currently. So this podcast is a little bit part of it in a way. Hopefully, it will evolve even bigger. So then I can kind of test them out standalone without it affecting my business. So I recommend,
Yeah.
having something outside of that, because then I can just switch up. But I do agree with you. And I think my relationship with Loving ClickUp has been going on since 2017. And I don't see us switching. For example, SmartSuite is my business brain. Shout out to SmartSuite. Hopefully, they see our podcast also. But
Yeah.
definitely, I love to stick with them for years. There are some smaller things that I don't hesitate to change, such as Calendly, for example, for meeting booking links. I'm hesitating because maybe somebody wants to sponsor us. I don't want to chase away sponsors, but joke aside, I do agree that they all have their strengths, and I think that there is a reason why they are on the market for so long, and that they have their users. There will always be unsatisfied customers for everything. You can't have everybody 100% happy with everything,
Sure.
but I think that we both look at things in a way: can they communicate with each other? Do they
Yeah.
solve a bigger business picture? And then we have Zapier, Make, Na10, and other third-party softwares that go into that and help to kind of like create the ecosystem of the business there. So I,
Sure.
I like how you described it. I'm gonna rename my folder "Shiny Objects Syndrome" with everything
Yeah.
I'm saving. Yeah, perfect. So I'm wondering when you walk into a project or a business and you look at the situation, you look at the messy business setup, and this is not to judge anybody, this is normal. So every business starts somewhere, every business has processes they need to map, they need to change. And when you're in the weeds, you don't see those things. So an external consultant can help you realize this is the bottleneck. What you're describing is just a symptom. So maybe somebody says, I don't know what my team does, but at the end of the day, maybe the team doesn't have any protocol on how to create tasks, where to track them, and all of that. And when we fix that, then you will know what the team does. So what do you usually do? What are the first two or three things that you look at that can help our listeners maybe self-diagnose in a way, and to know this is the moment where I need an outside help?
Sure. I think a lot of times one of the first things that stands out is when we find that people are duplicating information in multiple places. So a lot of times they have spreadsheets, they're transferring information from one spreadsheet to another, they're manually copying information from one system to another. And that's a quick way to identify when there's issues. You should have kind of, I try to make one source of truth. So, one source where you can find all your information, and whether we're integrating it with different tools to kind of copy over that information, that's a key indicator for me that there's something amiss in your systems. And we need to first identify what systems you're using and how can we either align these systems or kind of bring it all into one system that's going to be fully functional.
How would you help somebody understand that they need that one source of truth, then, and they need it also in terms of file storage? So I've encountered a lot of people, and this could be a generational thing, it doesn't have to be necessarily business start or a middle, that they store files locally on the computer. They're kind of still hesitant to use the cloud, they're still hesitant to use the storage. So that's one bottleneck in communication. How do you kind of help them understand what is the benefit of that?
Yeah, I talk about the downsides first of if you're storing something locally and you leave for a new job or you're sick one day or something happens and you can't be available, nobody has access to that information. And so nobody can pick up where you left off and kind of take that and run with it. And so I try to emphasize that in the beginning, that how general access for, or whether it's a team or a group, so somebody can take the information you have and carry the task forward is really important. And so maybe it's starting with like showing them a simple foundation of a Google Drive and how simple it can be, and then talking about how we can automate it. When this item is added to the drive, we can bring it into your Airtable or bring it into your system and have a hyperlink there so you could easily access it from there. So I give them kind of like cons of what they're currently doing and pros and benefits of what they could be doing.
What about cybersecurity aspect? Do you ever try to help with password management, or do you have uh, an area of business that you don't dabble with? For example, I only work with sales management, project management, and business management. We tend to not go into marketing or cybersecurity or anything like that. And if yes, why?
I give overall guidance. I mean, I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but I have expertise on cybersecurity for the systems I use. But I get, and I'll give general guidance, but that usually lies with their IT department and things like that. So I just encourage things where you can sign in with your Google if you have a Google account, and just making sure that only items that you truly want, and in some cases this is hard, but you truly want to be seen by the public, is actually a public link. And a lot of times they're using they're using Google Sheets and they're just kind of sharing these openly. And if somebody got that link, they could see all their data. So I try to show them the benefits of like kind of locking things down with the tools we're utilizing.
I think it's also the aspect of understanding different compliances the software that we both recommend have. For example, SmartSuite has compliance with so many regulations and laws, and I think that's a very important layer there that people don't take into consideration. For example, additionally to that, you know that I'm talking to you from Croatia. I'm in Europe, and we have very strict GDPR laws. So I also have to check and to be sure that most of the software we use for European companies they do have servers in Europe. So that's one of the aspects there that's very crucial. Do you ever have any additional layers there, or do you just collaborate with IT departments or any,
Yeah,
not even maybe that, if I can just clarify, it can also be like advice for a solo entrepreneur. It really doesn't have to be for a team.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been working with like a lot of educational institutions in the past couple years, and they have private data about related to students. And so I have worked with them to analyze what their policies are internally and ensure that any of the softwares that we're utilizing are in compliance with those policies. A lot of times we're building portals now, and portals have different compliance than the software that you're initially building and building that portal on top of. So, yeah, I work with the IT teams to kind of identify what those policies are and then ensure we're complying to the best of my knowledge.
I don't want the listeners to kind of think that this is too complicated. I added that layer in the conversation. But at the end of the day, I think just like you mentioned, working with somebody that's there for you, that understands your business, sees the patterns, sees the processes, can guide you in the direction. And even if none of us do cybersecurity, for example, as additional specialty, then there are other experts that can collaborate in the team. But I think what the goal is definitely for people to understand that they don't need to do this on their own. Um,
Sure.
right? While no code software is there for you to be able to use it without guidance, this is more of a time and your workload versus investment type of thing. So if you do have time and you want to take your business slower, you can also learn and see the YouTube tutorials and all of that. But if you really want somebody to kind of like push you faster and help you scale, I think that's the best argument to hire a consultant. If today's episode makes you realize your tools are not supporting your business, Proprium builds systems in tools like Airtable, SmartSuite, ClickUp, HubSpot, Make, Zapier, and many more. Proprium's team maps your processes, builds your workflows, automates your tasks, and trains your team. If you want systems done properly, visit proprium.agency. What do you think?
Oh, I definitely think that. I think that, you can learn this software. It's somewhat simple to learn. It does have, depending on the software you're working with, it has somewhat of a steep learning curve in the beginning. A lot of that is changing with AI because they have AI builders and things like that. But I think the true benefit of a consultant is having a partner there. If something breaks and you don't know how to fix it, you have someone that's dealt with this hundreds, if not thousands of times to be able to jump in and execute for you. So, there's a lot of benefits. Our knowledge, we've been doing this for 7 years. We've probably likely run into a lot of the challenges our clients are facing. So we could jump in, do some training, or quickly rectify like any errors that come up. Whereas it may take somebody that's working and just learning the software, hours and hours to learn.
I want to build on what you said and say that it's also the customer support that you mentioned in one of the answers previously, because if you are unable to communicate with customer support of the software you're paying, it's gonna be a little bit harder to solve things through just documents and wikis and all of that. Definitely AI can help, but even that has a limit when you need a human to kind of intervene if there's a bug or something went wrong, because something could always go wrong. Software is a living organism in a way, not
Sure.
literally, but they build it, they make it better, they iterate. It can have its bugs even when it's one of the most I think polished or best softwares on the market. All of them can sometimes with new features have issues. So I think that's also there. And what I would add on top of it, additionally, is knowing how to ask a question. I've noticed more than once and in many circumstances that clients feel much more comfortable with guidance on how to also talk to the customer service because they don't know how to ask a question. They don't, if they just started using that, they don't know the nomenclature, the architecture of it, the how it's set up, which terms are being used inside of the system. So I think that that's also additional thing that people from our industry can help. Did you encounter any of those situations, challenges with customer services? How do you overcome that?
Well, now, yeah, customer service is a lot of times run by AI. So I know for myself, when I'm trying to contact support, it can be frustrating if you're at the point where I don't want to talk to AI. I want to talk to a human. I want to explain the problem. AI is not working for me. And so, bypassing that AI step in these softwares can be challenging. And so instead of that, I have a lot of my clients who are coming to me like, hey, can you help me with this situation? Because the turnaround time sometimes on customer support is 2 to 3 days, and so they're having to wait. So I think a big piece of what we do is relationships on top of the software, and knowing and educating yourself on the software is having these relationships. People want to talk to other people, and if you are passionate about their business alongside with them, they feel like you're an extension of their team, and they're going to naturally come to you to help get solutions.
Definitely. And you're not just knowing that software, you're also tracking the features. So in a way, you also know when something is on the roadmap because you're looking at the roadmaps, you're looking at the features, you know basically what's going to happen, especially if you are in partnership relationship with any of those softwares. You can also have ability to test out some things before it's even on the market. So I think that that's very valuable. And I always kind of compare what we do with, if you start a business and you don't know accounting and you don't want to, do your own accounting, you're going to reach out to a professional. You're going to hire an accountant. When you need contracts drafted, you're going to hire a lawyer. And I always try to explain, if you need help with software, you're going to find a consultant, whether it's a custom built software or it's a no code software. But it's always best to go with somebody that has knowledge and has seen all of this. That can be frustrating.
Yeah, and can guide you through the process, support you through the process, identify, because there is so much software out there, like what's the best route for you to go. Yeah, I think that we play a really important piece in like getting companies set up and ready for growing, or ready, or maybe they've grown so much and they haven't looked at their systems, and now we could take a step back and be like, okay, how are we going to fix this? Because if you grow any more, it's going to create problems. And so just being a support person for them.
For sure. And it's also paying for subscriptions that you might not need because certain features are already included in certain plans of something else. So that's one thing that definitely needs checking. Why waste money and time if you don't have to? So in these 7+ years, have you encountered some projects that frustrated you? And could you tell us a story about that, or something that you're really proud of and you love to tell that story? So what are some ups and downs of this
Yeah,
career?
I think there's definitely been frustrations. Over the years, I've worked with a lot of clients that I still continue to work with to this day. I think one of the biggest frustrations I've ever run into is working with a client who kind of expects you to take it forward and not have interaction with them. They want you to kind of one and done and set up their system. And that's kind of not the way that things work. You have to understand what their business does, you have to understand the way they operate, and they have to be a player in that. And so over the years, as I've run into frustrations like that, I've just kind of tried to incorporate it into my process. And I've always kind of evolved the way that I've done things. So if I'm running into a challenge where people don't understand that this is going to be a time commitment for them, then I incorporate that into my onboarding. I explain it during our kickoff call. I send them reminders about scheduling check ins and things like that. So those are kind of some of the bigger frustrations I've run into. And then some of the benefits I've run into is just the network that I've established over the years. I've worked with one client who has referred dozens of clients to me, and that's because I've built a really solid relationship with them. Not only do they trust that we can implement great solutions for them, they trust us and they know that we're going to, we care about their business and we're going to be there when they call on us. And so I think one of the most rewarding things that has come out of building my own company is the network that I've established and the just relationships with my clients.
I think that's crucial because at the end of the day, it's a win-win relationship and it's a service that involves a person being present and work together. Because at the end of the day, if it's something that you think that they need, then you're just providing a template, which is also okay for some stages in the business, for sure. But what you're offering is tailored service that needs to be adjusted to that business and to their needs basically.
Sure. Yeah, I have a story about I work with like a series of educational institutions and they all kind of do the same thing. But I've gone through this discovery process with them and found that each one does the same thing but does it differently. And so I've been able to go from one to the other, and I've improved one, moved on to the other, and taken those improvements with me, so carried them through. So there's been a lot of value in just like seeing the evolution over these same similar clients and how we can improve among all of them, even though they do things slightly different.
I do feel that every project levels up both you and the client, and the service becomes much more different than it was in the beginning. So it also maybe improves your own processes and systems in the business. Just like you said, you improve your onboarding because you notice this pattern in a certain client, etc. And those are things that come naturally. And what I'm maybe aiming at to the audience is that this is normal and you can't just sit down in 1 week and then say, okay, I'm going to systemize my business, it's going to be the best, it's going to be perfect, we're going to solve everything. It's something that will go with you providing the services to the client and you working every day in your business, and it will never stop, right?
Exactly. I think it's always evolving. Even for me, for instance, I've been in business for 7 years. And last year, I realized within my business that I was a bottleneck and I needed to sort of get out of my own business. And it's really easy to tell somebody else they need to do that. But when you have to look at yourself and say, I have to get out of this. And so I joined a coaching program for companies, for agencies similar to ours, and it has been so beneficial. It's been like 6 months, and just understanding, when you start a business like this, there's no like training guideline, there's no course you take, there's nothing specific about our industry and how you do things. And so I've been able to network with other people in a coaching program, understand how they do their business, take some things that I've learned from people that I really respect in the industry, and then adapt my business to some things you may not have thought of or you just aren't doing. And I think that the second you stop looking at your business and saying, oh, it's done, it's perfect the way it is, and you kind of sit there, is you're doing an injustice to your own company, because we're going to have to change the way we do things. AI is coming into the picture. It's going to affect the way we do things. And we just need to keep evolving and improving. And so that's what I've done over the years.
I feel the I'm being the bottleneck in my business. Talk that you said. We literally have a rule in Proprium that they have to not allow me to come to a certain number of meetings, and they took over some certain activities and all of that, because you always go with, well, why not join them, why not help them? And at the end of the day, when you sit down and when you're thinking, where does my time go? And while I think we both built stamina for long work days
Yes.
over the years, I'm pretty sure you had good share of
Oh
16
yeah.
hour work days, right?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
It just can't, you can't keep up that way, and
no,
what I've realized over the last couple years is the first 5 years I was invested to 16-hour days, to doing my own marketing, to doing my own social media, and I just couldn't keep up, and my family was sacrificing, and my husband has been a very, very patient person, but now it's time to, kind of take a little bit of a step back and let some other people kind of jump into the business, but I wasn't sure exactly how to do that. I had all the knowledge in my head. I had been training myself for years and years. And I'm still learning how to train people. But what I've found is that the best way that people are going to jump in and learn this software and learn how this process goes is by shadowing you and understanding what your job is, and is by hands on doing it. The only way you're going to learn how to solve a problem with no code technology and look at a specific instance that a client has a problem is by solving it for them. And the next time you're going to say, hey, I was able to solve this problem for X client, I'm going to apply this method to the next one.
for sure. And that's also a little bit of a addictive element, because I think people who do this type of work are naturally curious. They can see patterns. They're the ones that are builders, they're the people that can have, I think, high stamina in front of the computer, basically. And then you get stuck if you don't let it go. And I think we both say to our clients, don't be the bottleneck. And then we felt that ourselves. And
Yeah.
now I'm a little bit, shocked when I see, for example, I'm having a little bit of a free time, and I see a post that I scheduled being published, that I even forgot I wrote a month ago, because now I have a system for my LinkedIn post. I have a system for Instagram and all of that. And my partner has a notification when my post is published. And we just sat the other day, and the notification came, and he was like, "Oh, you posted on LinkedIn." And I looked at him like, oh, I don't even remember what I posted.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I was like, I finally stopped making myself push through the limits that I don't need to push through. And I think it's also visible when you talk to somebody. For example, I can feel in this conversation that we are both relaxed, that we are fully focused on the conversation. Neither of us is looking at the phone, nothing is buzzing, we're not stressed out, and all of that. And I think that's what clients also feel when they talk to a consultant, because if you're stressed out, overworked, and burnt out, how are you gonna get me out of that, right? So
Sure.
we have
Exactly.
to also fix ourselves.
Sure. Yeah. And it takes a lot of hard work when you're growing a business and you're the only one doing it. You're fully invested. And to take a look at yourself and be like, I need to back out of this. Like, for instance, social media for me too. My team does all the social media. Sometimes they'll post and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that feature came out. I didn't even, because it's fully out of my hands. And even though I used to be where I had to have my hand in everything, I'm realizing that it's just not a practical way to run the business. And as we grow, it just isn't sustainable.
I looked at it as like a badge of honor, for the first few years. If I'm overworked, if I'm doing this, then I am this, entrepreneur. I'm hustling, I'm doing it correctly. And I don't know if it's the years in business or my age, or are those things, and shifting in my mind, basically. But I now, when I see an overworked, busy person that's stressed out, I just think you need, SOPs, help, processes. It's gonna be okay. You just need to sit down and somebody can take you out of that.
Sure.
But 10 years ago, when I would see a person like that, I would be like, wow, they must be so successful.
Yeah, I know it appears that way, but I think you have to kind of look at it. And if you have no work life balance, the reality is you will get burnt out. And I've been there a couple times myself and had to pick myself up and keep going, but then learn from it and modify the way you're doing things.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that it won't happen to me again because I get very fixated if it's a new project. But now I can see the signs, right?
Sure.
You can see and feel basically the change. And I think that it doesn't even have to be this, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of free time, perfect balance in a day. But if it's, 2 days of 16-hour work because it's a launch of something, then the next day should be like, let's not do anything or let's do 2 hours. And at the end of the day, I think the goal is to do something that can help you manage relationships and have conversations and connect with people. Because I see it now. While I am great at certain things, and I love doing them, I really do. I had to talk to myself and be like, well, do you want to run a business or do you want to have a job where you do that? Because
Sure.
if you keep doing that, you're taking somebody else's job in a way because you're doing that work that's not available to another person. So, do you want to keep repeating that or do you want to be an entrepreneur? Because that's the trap, right? You start being an entrepreneur and you think you're going to do what you want to do, but at the end of the day you really need to manage relationships and manage resources. That's
Yeah, and
your
be
job.
there for the clients. Yep, exactly. And that's where I started to say, okay, I have to step back from the building part. I need to have somebody building. I need them to understand how your brain goes about that process and connecting all the pieces and structure and everything. And so I hired a project manager and I kind of brain dump everything on her and she learns alongside me. But she's able to take our projects and get them to a 90% mark by utilizing our team and everything, and then I can help kind of polish things up, give feedback, and carry it through.
How did you figure out how to choose a person that suits you? Because I've encountered, especially with clients and fellow entrepreneurs, doesn't even have to be a client. I've encountered that when people first start delegating after a burnout, usually they resent the people that don't have the same skills and they kind of don't understand that maybe two or three or five people need to replace them, not one person.
Sure.
So how did you kind of prepare for that mentally? How did you choose? Which traits were you looking for?
Yeah, I think that trying to find somebody that has exactly the expertise that we do is impossible. Those people are doing their own thing. They're either working for another agency or they're kind of doing their own thing. And so I think I had to look for skills where you were tech savvy. And you just kind of had that hustler kind of mentality. Like, this could be a little bit of a chaotic job. You're bouncing from one client to another. Everyone has different requirements. You have to learn and pick up skills fast. And so understanding where people were at and what kind of situations they thrive in, and then teaching them. You can teach the no code piece of it, but it was understanding kind of what this whole job was. And so the people that I have on my team are always evolving, always learning new things, kind of jumping in and being hands on and experiencing new technologies and new features of these technologies and new ways to implement, because we have AI builders and all of that. And those people that are able to adapt to those changes have stayed with me the longest. And I've, you know, had wonderful hires over the years. And I've also had hires that weren't so great. And so I try to evaluate how can I learn from those and continue those forward. And right now we're hiring again to get more off of my plate. And I'm looking at people from the perspective of, do you like technology? Are you hands on? Are you utilizing AI, which is a wonderful option I didn't have when I started, to like train yourself and learn some things on your own? Are you somewhat independent where YouTube and AI can help, kind of get you up to speed where you have gaps? And so that's what I'm looking for in people, is just kind of like, um, the ability to learn and catch on, and the interest in no code software and the evolution of this kind of industry and where it's going.
I relate to that fully, and I agree. I'm hoping to get a team that's smarter than me. I have a very I think I have a great team of very smart individuals that I'm very happy with, and I see them day to day getting more and more knowledge. And what I've noticed that the common thing between them is the curiosity. When they look at an interface, it's not just seeing, okay, well, these are the options, this is what we can do, but going like, okay, if I can't make this work this way, do I do option B, C, or D? Do I go to Zapier for this option? Or do I try to see if there's a native integration or automation there? Or if something doesn't work, that they don't just jump at the error, but they just go, maybe there's a glitch, or this is a little bit of a delay. You know how sometimes error messages pop up and then you refresh and they disappear? So people
Yes.
who can kind of like see through that and be, okay, we got this, we can solve it. And I'm happy I found people like that. And I noticed that they either go into a bigger company after us, or they start their own company, and I'm okay with that. when
Yeah.
when I was starting out, I had this like vision, I'm gonna have people in my team for 20 plus years and all of that.
It's
And I
really
learned through the years, I'm the one that needs to stay. Everybody else can leave and come when they want. And when I kind of sorted that with myself, with my own mindset, people started staying for way longer times, and they're very happy. I hope, they're going to
yeah.
listen to this podcast. So hopefully you are happy.
Yeah, exactly. I think too, I in the beginning when I'd have people leave, it was like really heartbreaking because you've invested all this time, you've kind of taught them everything you know. And so I think I uh stop taking such a hands-on approach where I'm holding hands with somebody and really teaching them everything, and more doing it in a group dynamic and allowing them to kind of explore and then coming to me for questions. But that way I don't feel like, oh, I've invested so much time, and they may move on to something else, because that's very much a reality in this industry. Is they could move on to work for one of these software companies, start their own thing, work for, like you said, a bigger agency.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the not even the effort. I think it's the emotional investment that you're mentioning. It's more of a,
Mhm.
when you started having those expectations, it was easier, because first few felt like a relationship ender, like a heartbreak, fully like we broke up. But it's not. It's just people have different priorities in life, and I chose entrepreneurship, and I can't understand anybody who didn't. Not that I'm judging them, of course, for sure, but the thing is that I can only understand the perspective I have from my own experience and background,
Yeah.
and I can just respect other perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I look at it like I love being my own boss, but it's not for everybody.
No.
It's very hard. It's not easy to get going. You have to work very hard to get to a place where you're comfortable, and that not might not be for some people. You don't have benefits readily available for you. It's a struggle. So I've also realized that it just might not be for everybody.
It's also a mindset game. I really feel that entrepreneurship pulls you in a way that everything you have as insecurities, limiting beliefs, anything that you need to kind of resolve, it kind of makes you do faster and bangs on you, very in a more painful way.
Yeah.
If I was an employee, I would have to, of course, work on myself and improve. but this comes to you from all sides at the same time. And it just, if you don't accept the chaos and uncertainty and just glide through it, you're gonna break. Does that make
Exactly.
sense?
Yes, definitely. I know for me, when I first started, I faced imposter syndrome. I really just, I was like, oh, there's these bigger agencies out there, or there's these people that have done it longer than me. And I realized after talking to many of them and getting to know my network, we all did it the same way. We all started, we all learned to kind of, you learn on your own. Now there's more tools available for you than there was when we started, but that was something that was hard for me to overcome. And I still, I think, face it a teeny bit, but I've kind of learned and said, I've been doing this for a long time. I know that I'm educated in this area, but at first it was a struggle.
I've also noticed that people who are way, above me with experience and of the amount of projects and all of that, if I reach out to them, they're gonna be kind and respectful, and they're gonna even help, which is something that people don't understand. They think that, well, that's my competition, I should stay away, but it's actually not true. If you start talking to competition, air quotes for people listening the audio, you're gonna realize that you're gonna get a relationship, and you're gonna have somebody who actually understands you. It's all about how you enter that conversation, with which intentions are you entering the conversation, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, when I first started, I was watching Gareth from Gap Consulting, like most people do on YouTube, and that's how I learned Airtable. And one day I reached out to him and just asked him if I could introduce myself, and he has been so wonderful. He was like really open with me about starting his company, really nice guy. And so I kind of did that with multiple people that I just looked up to and respected. Automation helpers is another one I really respect, and looked up, and looked at them for, asked them a few questions, asked them to pick their brain, and they have been nothing but kind and open. Yeah.
I have similar experiences, and also we have the Women of No Code group
Mhm.
that SmartSuite created, that Terra created. So
Yeah.
I really feel that there is this positive vibe between people in this industry, and that it's a little bit different than your traditional IT companies. Um, the typical, I would say, background of most of us is very similar, and the approach is also very, very similar. Not in the methodology, of course. All of us have our own ways of doing things, but we kind of speak similar language in a way.
We do. We do. And if you talk to multiple people, we've all learned to kind of do things the same way. It's slightly different, but among us, you kind of learn the basic steps of going through this process. And we've all, the ones that have been in business, I've noticed around the same time, are near identical to the way we do things, because you just learn. You have to go through a discovery process before you can start designing a system and things like that. So it's funny to watch how everybody kind of lands at the same place over time to a
Well,
certain.
I think you also have to burn yourself a little bit. My first few projects, I didn't even think about discovery. I was just, I know how to do this. I will do it. And then I
Yeah.
was like, whoa, scope
Yeah.
creep. So yeah,
Yes, you have to take a step back and see. And same with me. I mean, I was a virtual assistant, so I just kind of knew what I knew, and I went and I implemented a tool. And now you go through a more formal discovery process. And I also think like user testing and the way you approach that and everything, I've evolved that quite a bit in the last year or two, because you really need that buy-in. You need people to understand these systems and get that feedback, and also training like people on my team to not look at the system from a way that we understand it, but look at it from a way that our clients are going to understand it. Some of them aren't very tech savvy, and how do you make it so it's easy and user friendly for them? How do you just kind of guide them through the process? And so looking for, with a pair of eyes that are not your own, is a skill that I've learned over time and as I've evolved as a consultant.
definitely. And it's the aspect of us having to learn somebody's business in less than a month or in a few weeks to understand something that's been built maybe even for decades in some cases. I think that's a very special skill, because we adapt very fast. We see the patterns. We can then recognize what to do. And of course, at the end of the day, while we all advise and help, the client still needs to make their own informed decision on what they will do for their business. So this mutual collaboration is very crucial and it can't be skipped.
Yes, definitely. I think it is just kind of going into a company and you haven't worked in that industry before. You don't know the way they go through their processes. Sometimes you don't even know the industry specifically because you haven't worked in it. And understanding how a specific industries work and then diving even deeper and understanding how a marketing department in a specific company works, because even though you could specialize in a certain area, it's still going to be a little bit different every time you dive into it.
So do you believe in niching down or no?
I've gone back and forth on this, and I think that we've niched down a bit, but there are certain industries that we really love to work with. But I also like the unknown. I also like diving into new challenges and new industries. So though there's niches like education that we really love. I really love working in construction because I find it fascinating, all the pieces that have to come together. We've worked with a lot of marketing departments and things like that, but law firms we've specialized in. But I wouldn't say we have just one niche that we're going to focus on, because I think we enjoy the different avenues, the different possibilities.
So when you kind of take all of that into consideration and everything that we talked about, the similarities between all of us, what do you think maybe makes your implementation approach different from others in the space? Do you have any philosophies or frameworks you swear by?
Yeah, recently I've been really focusing on, okay, how can I streamline things? The challenge is that you end up in a lot of meetings. So how do you have that balance of meeting with your client, understanding their needs, but also having the time to just kind of crank it out and get the work done? And so one of the different one of our competitor companies, or one of the network companies that I talk to, works in like 2 week sprint cycles. And so I've been really like implementing that. We meet with a client, do kind of 2 week sprints, then reiterate or iterate on it after that 2 week sprint. And that has worked really, really well. And so I don't know that there's anything I'm doing that maybe other agencies aren't doing. I think that am constantly evolving how we're doing things and trying new things and seeing what works best. I also think that I'm always evolving my contracts. And if, something isn't clear in a contract, I'm adding a line to my contract. And I'm also like adding new things that I'm introducing in onboarding and things like that. So I'm always changing things, and I'm always watching what others in our industry are doing so I can kind of like pick up on the areas where they're successful or where they've really benefited, because there's so many people doing so many great things out there and great companies that I really respect. So I'm just kind of keeping an eye on those. And that coaching program that I was in, the head of the coaching program is really well known in the Airtable space. And I kind of just took what she had, taught and implemented it into my own way of doing things. And though it's not exactly like her, it has greatly benefited the way I'm doing it.
What I think is crucial of what you're saying is the thing that you don't accept status quo in it. You basically iterate and iterate. And I think the old way of thinking, 50 years ago and all of that, was always, let's keep the systems intact. We figure them out once, we kind of repeat them, they're working, let's not do that. And today's world is, things change on daily basis. I've seen some softwares that came out, such as Zite. You probably tested
Oh,
it out. It's amazing. It
it
really
is.
feels so different than anything else I've tested so far. And it's what, 2 weeks old? Not
Oh,
even
yeah,
that.
it's fantastic.
It's
I've always
insane.
been a huge fan of Fill Out, and I really respect, like, the company as a whole. They've always been super wonderful, and so when I heard they were coming out with Zite, I was really excited because Fill Out I pretty much use in a large majority of my implementations, and I'm like, "If they're coming out with Zite, it's gonna be just as good." And it's only a few weeks in, and I'm already showing my clients,
Yeah.
here, this is what I think you could use Zite for. So I'm excited to see where they go over the next few years. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a great addition to this whole no code space.
I was so happy when I got the beta.
Yes, me
I
too.
felt like a child, and it was 2 a.m. my time, and I didn't sleep until 4 because I had to test it out immediately. It was so fun. So shout
Yeah.
out to them. And we love Fill Out in Proprium. We use it for scheduling, for forms, for everything. We really, really, really recommend it. And I'm happy that you're also satisfied with Fill Out.
Oh yeah, I use Fill Out for everything for my business. Yeah.
And it's so simple and it's fun. It's
Yeah.
not rigid. What I love about it, I think that, and the customer service, I have to really, really say amazing stuff about their
Incredible.
customer service. I think that's the goal of all of these things that we're using, that we're working on and doing with clients, basically, is that people understand that this is not something you do and that's it. Our business is now going to succeed for sure. We have a recipe. And another thing is that this is all evolving all the time, and it's okay
Yeah.
to throw something in the trash and start something new and test this out and test that out and be okay with change. I think that's what makes a successful business. And I love how you talk about AI because I have the same thinking. I don't see AI replacing us or causing problems. I really feel it's gonna unlock the level of human creativity because we're not gonna have to focus on repeatable stuff that we have to currently and we used to have, and that you're gonna have time to create more things, and we're gonna have inventions. And I really think it's a really
Oh,
great
it's going to
period
benefit
coming.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I first started seeing AI, I was like, "Oh, is this going to take my job?" It's concerning. But when now that I look at it, I'm like, it's just going to be like a helpful little partner for me. It may be able to build things, which is great, speed up that time so I could focus more on training, on like executing strategy and things like that. So it I've been building AI agents lately. I really love them. I'm having a lot of fun with AI, and that's definitely like a direction we're going to go with incorporating AI into workflows. And there's going to be a lot of companies who are not going to adopt AI for a very long time. I mean, there's still people working in spreadsheets, and that's how they get things done, and they're intimidated by all this technology. So we could sort of be the kind of like in between person to introduce people to AI. It's not as scary as it sounds, and continue to build and customize workflows utilizing AI. So I'm excited about it more so than intimidated by it.
I think it's gonna be a skill how to communicate with AI. I think it's gonna be
Mhm.
for sure a skill on how to create a successful prompt that guides you in the correct direction and all of that there.
Sure. I'm
I'm
actually looking up training right now for prompt engineering because I'm like, I have to really master these AI prompts. Yeah.
so I'm wondering, what's something you believe about systems that you think most people in our industry get wrong or overlook?
Hmm. What do I believe about systems that most people are in our industry? I'm not sure I have a good answer to that. Um, I think that one thing I will say, I don't think there's a perfect system out there. I don't think I've ever run into a system where I just thought this is it. It has everything. I think that every system has its really great features of it, or the systems I focus on. And then I think that there are downsides of every software. There's bugs, there's, features that they don't have. So I think that from like a systems consultant perspective, you just have to be knowledgeable in those areas. And that's like one of the true powers of a consultant, is that knowledge of systems and being able to guide your clients in the right direction. I'm not sure if that was a great answer to your question, but yeah.
I think it makes sense because I think that the biggest misconception is that the systems are something you can have it from beginning to the end, and that's it. You don't have to change it. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
definitely agree with that one.
Yeah, I
Um,
would definitely agree with you there. I think, and that's something that I've talked to my clients a lot recently about, is I really enjoy a long-term relationship with clients. It's not a one and done thing. You're going to come back to it. You're going to iterate on it and going to improve it. And if you have that mindset that it's kind of just implement and done, you're going to be disappointed because there are evolutions and changes that are going to happen over time.
For sure. And even if you don't use software, if let's say you're pen and paper and you don't need it for some reason and your business is just like that, you're gonna change as a person. Your preferences are gonna change. Maybe you wanna switch services. Maybe, after so many one-on-one consulting calls, I've realized that I repeat similar things on the first call. So why not have either workshops or group coaching, for example, or anything that can save me time and help more people. So I am not the same person I was. And the thing is, it's not about just the software, it's you as the business owner. Maybe you want to sell the company. That's also something that people don't take into consideration. Maybe you want to build something and then hire somebody to do it instead of you and then sell the company later. I heard so many good advices from entrepreneurs on their YouTube channels where they say always build with end in mind, in terms of if you were to sell the company, which you don't have to, but if you plan to do that, then what are the things you would do? You would have systems and processes in place, because when you sell, the company has to survive without you, right? Because you're not the person that's going to do 15 jobs. You have to hire 15 people. So what do you think about that approach?
Um, I think that you need to, yeah, if you're looking at your company as if you're going to potentially sell it one day, you need to not be the only one managing it and running it. You need for other people to understand how it's done. You also need to document heavily what you're doing and how your processes flow, because that's going to be an important piece in one day selling off your company.
So when we have all of that, let's say a person has their business set up, they have a relationship with the consultant, they have that support there ongoing, and that's all working. The system is built, whether it's custom portal or it's an adoption of ClickUp or something else. What is the best way to ensure that what's built is actually used? Because it can fall through the cracks after the outsourced team leaves, right? And they have to use it on their own.
Sure. I think having one person, I refer to them as like champions, or like the owner that you're really going to, or a couple of people is probably good too, where you're really going to kind of download your knowledge to them. So also creating resources for them. So a lot of times we're doing tutorial videos and things and including those with documentation of our implementation. But one person that's really focused on internally within the company getting this going. User adoption is really hard, and companies struggle with this, and sometimes they're intimidated by it. So I have learned kind of how do you handhold some, maybe more than you would others, checking in frequently on my side to make sure like somebody's seeing it through on your side, and just internally having one person that's going to be like, I'm going to get this up and running. We've invested the money, we've invested the time, and yes, it's a learning curve, but we're going to get this moving.
Did you maybe ever encounter resistance from a leadership team or members of a team, or if you're working with 5+ people, not just one or two people, were there ever challenges like that? How did you overcome that?
Yes. Oh, I have many times over the years. I think identifying the right person on the team from the start who's going to be involved in these meetings. A lot of times I'm working with CEOs and I'm working with higher level executives, but are they actually going to be involved in the day to day of operating the system, of working in the system? In most cases, they're likely not. So, incorporating somebody else from the team, also getting a lot of feedback from them. If something, a lot of times they'll get scared off if they don't feel like they know how to use something. So, more trainings, maybe one-on-one trainings with specific individuals who may struggle with technology. And so just understanding like that there's no one and done way to hand something off, and kind of adapting to that client specifically.
That makes full sense, and it's change management at the end of the day. It's managing expectations, different levels of knowledge, sometimes even different experiences, generations, generational, I would say, gaps, expectational gaps. And I've also noticed that there are unspoken fears, that they're not sometimes just about maybe even the software itself, but will this software replace me? Am I
Yeah,
necessary after this? And then people tend to get a little bit afraid about their job security. And I've
sure.
noticed that addressing that up front, this is not
Sure.
against you, this is to make you work better, that it makes
Yeah.
them a little bit
It's
easier. Yeah.
enhancing. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that too, and I've run into that too, where automation is a scary thing. If you're in an administrative role, you may worry that it's going to take over. And though it may take on certain aspects of your job, I think the point of automation is to enhance all of us, to get things off our plate, to not have those 12-hour days, to make sure things are running smoothly. But taking humans out of your process completely is not a smart way to run your business. I mean, for the most part, you need human interaction, and I don't think that's going to change. But there are areas where we can just enhance what everybody does using this automation and AI and custom tools.
For sure. And I think it's also important to emphasize that not everything needs to be automated.
Yeah.
You definitely need to kind of, I think, realize maybe some things are better manual, maybe some things are better with human touch. So, how do you reason and explain and process that information with clients where you see that is something that they should maybe change, or where you see something that you could do in a different way, but they maybe push for certain things?
Sure. So I think there's a lot of processes where I believe there should be a human in the loop at some point. There should be some sort of human interaction. And so that's where I established like buttons that they could trigger. So the automation isn't doing everything fully itself. There's like a checkpoint where a human's going to review and it can carry on to its next step. And so I look at something and say, I kind of look at it from my perspective. If this was my own business, would I want this fully automated? And in the case that I don't, I'm going to communicate with the client like I think that we should first double check this before this automation kicks in. And then I'm going to put kind of like a stopping point in an automation so there is a chance for a human to interact with data before it carries forward.
I think that's very crucial, and it makes everything much more tailored towards their business. So that touch that you do with the button, and the touch points where you create the, I think, point of the process that's crucial for review. I believe that also reassures them where their role is at, and it makes it much more clearer what they are expected to do in the process.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
So you've been doing this for 7+ years. I think we're in the similar boat. I started in 2018. Seems
Me
that you
too.
started, yeah, same year. So
Yeah.
what keeps you excited? How do you cope with those days when it's, I don't feel like doing this, but you still go? And I know for myself, I always get up. It doesn't take me more than 15 minutes. I really want to do this, even if I don't feel the best in my life. So, what kind of fuels you?
I've always, since I kind of realized what my path was, I've been energized by it. There are days I have had burnouts, but for the most part, I wake up really excited about my job. I tend to, when I realize I'm getting burnt out, I take a break. So I take a 3 day weekend. Something I've recently started doing is taking 3 days off a month, just quiet, no meetings, just to analyze my business, get caught up on things, just quiet time. And that has been so valuable for me to be able to take a little step back. So I get excited about all the possibilities. I have a list, a huge list of things I want to look into, softwares I want to play with, new ideas that are coming up. Recently when Zeit came out, I'm like, I can use this for a client. So I set up a little demo, went back to an old client, got them excited about it. So I'm excited about just to see where it goes, to see how my our roles change, to see how fast AI evolves, to see what these software companies do. All of it's really exciting to me. I feel very lucky to be in a position where I love what I do.
I think that's the most crucial aspect of it, because every business has boring stuff, admin stuff, and you can't get rid of those. But
Right.
then this fuels you, and I feel like it feeds me in a way that I don't know what else would make me so happy. So I'm wondering, do you have any client story that really stayed with you also, just like the way that you have a passion for this, but that makes you so proud when you remember it?
Sure.
Puts a smile on your face.
Yeah, I have lots of client stories. I have a client that I am working with right now. I implemented a tool for them to kind of track some like course completions. And it was rocky at first. We had to work through the data and everything. And now they're at a point like, wow, this is really cool. They came back to me and they're like, this is so great. I rarely talk to them about that specific project because they're running it all on their own. And now we're doing a whole new project with a portal for them and their customers. And, having someone come back to me and reflect on where we were, and sometimes implementations aren't perfect and they can be chaotic and they can be really stressful for the client, but having them come back to you 6 months later and be like, I'm so glad we did this, it is running so smooth, and just seeing over time that they're coming back to me, they trust me, they've worked with me, is the most rewarding part of my job.
I love that, and I can feel the passion in your voice when you're saying that, because that's the goal of everything. Basically, at the end of the day, make their businesses easier and help them focus on what they want to focus on, so they can also provide value to others and solve problems
Sure.
that they are aiming to solve. So I wanted to thank you so much for joining me today. I really feel that this hour and a half just flew by. I've had fun. Thank you.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this stuff with you. It's been great.
Thank, thank you, Shannon. And for the audience that listen to us, I really love conversations like this. I think that you can uh, learn a lot about how this goes beyond what you expect when you think about what does a systems consultant do. And I think that we learned a lot today related to how to approach this and why we do what we do, both of us, in a way. So I hope that you had fun listening to us. And if you want to connect with Shannon, check out SMV Virtual Consulting or follow her on LinkedIn. She will respond, and you're going to have a pleasant conversation for sure. Her content is as practical as it is insightful. And as always, thank you for tuning into Systems with Laura. Don't forget to subscribe, share the episode, and leave a review. And if this conversation helped you rethink how systems can transform your business, I'm going to be very happy. And until next time, build smart, automate well, and lead with clarity. If you enjoy conversations like this, you'll love the Proprium Digital Network. It's a community where digital service founders get tools, templates, weekly insights, and behind the scenes guidance on building systems the right way. If you want to stop building systems alone and start building with support, join us at proprium.agency.